I opened my eyes to a ceiling of flickering fluorescent lights, my mouth dry as chalk, the air thick with the sting of disinfectant. A curtain swayed beside me, someone groaning on the other side. This wasn't the Lakeview recovery room I signed for. My son glanced up from his phone, smirked, and said, "Welcome to the cheaper option. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence. It lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe." Linda wakes up post-surgery, disoriented, in a shared room with a stranger groaning behind a curtain. I woke up to the sting of fluorescent lights and the sour, metallic scent of disinfectant. My mouth was dry as sandpaper, my head swimming, like someone had spun me around in a chair and left me to wobble. For a second, I wasn't sure where I was, or even what day it was. There was a dull ache somewhere deep in my abdomen, surgical, not emotional, but it pulsed through me all the same. A soft groan floated up from behind a beige curtain to my right. It sounded human. Barely. "Mom?" Brian's voice, a little too upbeat. My eyes rolled toward him. He was perched on the edge of a plastic chair, scrolling through something on his phone. He didn't look up. "Where am I?" I managed to rasp, though my throat rebelled with the effort. He smirked without looking at me. "Welcome back to the land of the living. You're at St. Vincent's, the, more affordable wing." My eyes darted around the room. It was cramped. 2 narrow hospital beds, mismatched curtains, peeling linoleum on the floor. This wasn't the private room I'd picked in the brochures. This wasn't the plan. "I thought I signed the forms," I said, the words dragging out of me, thick and sluggish. "The other facility. The one with the lake view." Brian finally looked at me, shrugged. "Insurance wouldn't touch it. You don't qualify unless you're basically dying, and you're not yet." I blinked at him. He held up a little paper cup with a straw. "Orange juice. Doctor said to push fluids." I took a slow sip, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't trust my voice enough to argue yet. The juice was warm, sour, like it had been sitting out for hours. "Where's Trina?" I asked. "Had to run. Something with the kids." Brian stood, stretched like he'd just finished a workout. "She'll be back later." Behind the curtain, the groaning turned into words. "They left me in my own waste last night." I froze. The voice was reedy, feminine, shaking with a kind of quiet rage that came from repeated humiliation. Brian rolled his eyes. "She's been saying that all morning. Don't listen." My heart dropped into my stomach. I turned my head toward the curtain. The woman sounded older than me, worn out, tired in a way you don't come back from. And no one had answered her. "Has anyone checked on her?" Brian had already picked up his phone again. "Nurse said they're short-staffed. It's fine. She just likes to talk." My vitals monitor beeped once, sharp, irregular. A second beat, too fast. Then silence. Then another beep. Off rhythm. I waited for anyone, to come through the door. No one did. I pressed the call button 3 times. The woman behind the curtain whispered, almost like a prayer. No one came. I laid in it, all night. I gripped the blanket, suddenly aware of how cold my hands were. Brian cleared his throat. "Okay, I'm gonna go grab a coffee. You want anything?" I didn't answer. "Right. Be back in a bit." He walked out. Just like that. The door clicked softly shut behind him. I was alone, except I wasn't. The curtain rustled slightly. A gnarled hand emerged from beneath it, blue veins like tiny rivers under thin skin. She didn't reach for me. She just let it hang there, trembling in the stale air. "My name's June," the woman whispered. "Don't fall asleep too deep. That's when they forget you're here." I stared at the ceiling, counted the flickering lights. 1, 2, 3. She wasn't wrong. No one was coming. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, because the next time I opened my eyes, the light had shifted. Cooler now, tinged blue like dusk. June was quiet behind the curtain. The groaning had stopped. Or maybe I'd just tuned it out. I lay there a while, blinking up at the ceiling, listening to the soft mechanical sounds of the machines. Then I remembered the forms. "Brian," I rasped, pushing myself up an inch. Pain lit through my side like a flare. "I need to see the paperwork. From the other hospital." He was back in his chair, halfway through a protein bar, scrolling something on his phone. "We already went over this." "No, we didn't," I said. My voice was shaky but clearer. "I signed for Brookhaven. Private room, recovery therapy. Not this." He looked up slowly, like he was already bored of the conversation. "It's all legal, Mom. You signed a general consent. I took care of the rest." "You what?" He stood and tossed the wrapper into the trash. "You were sedated. The hospital called and said the insurance wouldn't cover Brookhaven without palliative status. So yeah, we authorized the transfer." "We?" "Me, Trina. It was all in the family's best interest. They said it's temporary." I stared at him, feeling something crawl down my spine. Not pain, not yet. A different kind of pressure, like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to. "They had me sign a care directive," I whispered. "Months ago. My choice." "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "And you also told Trina last fall that if anything ever got bad, we should do what we thought was best. This is it, okay? This is best." "It's covered. Covered." That was the word that made my chest tighten. A nurse walked in just then. Blonde, hair in a fraying bun, barely old enough to vote. "Oh, good, you're awake," she said. "We'll be changing out your dressing in a bit. Need anything?" I turned to her. "I was supposed to be recovering at Brookhaven. Why was I moved?" She blinked. "Oh, that, transfer came through yesterday. Family request." I looked at Brian. He didn't even flinch. "Vitals look okay," she added, tapping at a screen. "We'll get you some more pain meds once the chart updates." And then she was gone, a blur of scrubs and clipped sneakers. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed my eyes and felt the heat build under my eyelids. My phone buzzed on the side table. Nina. I fumbled for it with hands that felt like they were wearing gloves. Hit the green button. "Hey," I croaked. "Sweetheart. Mom?" Her voice, warm and clear, and hers immediately unraveled something inside me, and I broke. It wasn't loud. No sobbing or gasping. Just this silent tremor from the center of my chest outward, like a piece of me had finally admitted it couldn't hold up the rest. "They moved me," I whispered. "They changed everything." I didn't say yes. "I know," Nina said. "I found out this morning. Trina finally told me. I signed for Brookhaven. I swallowed. I wanted peace, not this. You're not alone, Mom. I'll be there tomorrow. First flight. They don't get to steamroll you." "I feel like I'm disappearing," I said, before I could stop myself. "Like they're making decisions for someone who's already gone." "You're not gone. I see you. We're going to fix this." The line stayed quiet for a beat. Then, "Try to rest. Just tonight. I'm coming." After we hung up, I set the phone beside me and stared at the ceiling again, but this time the tears came fast and hot, sliding into my ears as I lay flat, unable to wipe them away. That night, the halls weren't quiet. Somewhere down the corridor, a man's voice rose in a desperate yell. "Hello? Hello? She can't breathe. Someone come." No footsteps followed. No rush of staff. Another voice, more tired, shouted back, "They don't come after midnight, not unless you code." June stirred behind her curtain. "They come for bodies," she muttered. "Not pain?" My stomach clenched again, the post-op ache tightening into something sharper, deeper. I pressed the call button with my thumb. Once. Twice. A red light blinked weakly above the door. No one came. My side felt like it was on fire. My monitor started beeping again, faster now. I couldn't catch a full breath. Something wasn't right. I turned my head toward the curtain. "June?" I whispered. No answer. Only the rising chorus of someone else's emergency in the hallway and the absolute silence on the other side of mine. It was just after dawn when I finally heard her voice again. The pain had eased into something I could almost ignore. Dull, distant. But my mind was sharp now, uncomfortably so. I hadn't slept. The corridor was quiet again, the kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace. It means no one's watching. The curtain rustled. Then, "You still alive over there?" Her voice was clearer this time, still hoarse, but deliberate, tired in that heavy, resigned way. "Barely," I said. "You?" "Depends who's asking." I turned my head toward the thin, wrinkled fabric between us. "I'm Linda." A pause. Then, "Gloria." We sat in that for a beat. Just names. Like being acknowledged was enough to hold the air together. "You're the one they just dumped in here a few days ago, right?" she asked. "I was supposed to be recovering somewhere else." Gloria gave a bitter little laugh. "Ain't that all of us?" Her voice was stronger now, sardonic but soft. It sounded like someone who used to have a lot more to say and had slowly stopped bothering. "My daughter's in Cancun," she continued. "Left me here while she's on vacation with her new husband. Said it was for my safety. Can't be trusted alone with the insulin." I frowned. "Are you?" "What?" "Safe alone." "Yeah." Another pause. Then she answered with an exhausted honesty I wasn't expecting. "Mostly. I forget sometimes. I've had some episodes. Nothing dangerous. Just confusion. But she's convinced I'm seconds away from burning the house down." I didn't know what to say. There was something hollow in her tone, like she wasn't trying to convince me, just stating the facts of her own slow erasure. "I'm sorry," I said. "Because what else was there?" Gloria chuckled. "That's the thing. Everybody's sorry. Doesn't stop the drain from circling." The lights flickered. Once. Then again more violently. "Jesus," Gloria muttered. "That's the third time since midnight." My call buttons still glowed red, untouched. Then the door creaked open. A nurse walked in, mid-30s maybe. Tired, no eye contact. Scrubs wrinkled. No name tag. Just a clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. She moved to Gloria's bed first, barely glancing at me. "Vitals at 5, she mumbled, flipping through some forms. "Do you have a name?" I asked. She blinked at me, annoyed. "Why?" "I'd like to know who's handling my meds." A long pause. Then, "Jess." No smile. No follow-up. She moved toward my IV, checked the line, jotted something down, and was halfway to the door before Gloria spoke again. "Don't let them start upping your night pills," she said, voice low and dry. "That's how they make you easier. Sleep more, complain less." Jess didn't even turn around. The door clicked shut. "I've been on the same med schedule for months," Gloria added once she was gone. "But they keep asking if I'm ready to switch to the restful option. Said I'd feel calmer. Floaty." My skin crawled. "Is that legal?" Gloria snorted. Legal and decent don't always hold hands, sweetheart. I reached for my phone. My hands were steadier now, fingers trembling just slightly as I typed out the message. This is unacceptable. I want out. I sent it to Brian and stared at the screen. 3 dots appeared for half a second, then vanished. No reply. I opened the browser, tried searching the facility's name. A white screen popped up. Wi-Fi restricted. Staff-only access. External sites disabled. I tried again, this time on my own data. No signal. I leaned back, pulse rising in my ears. This wasn't just a bad wing of a hospital. This was something else, hidden in plain sight. And my own son. He knew. He chose this for me. From behind the curtain, Gloria spoke again. You want to know the real trick? She asked. What? Pretend you're sicker than you are. Confused. They pay less attention when they think you're already gone upstairs. I stared at the ceiling. 1, 2, 3 flickering lights. Then Gloria added, almost to herself, of course, the ones who pretend too well, they don't always come back. The next morning, I knew they were coming before I saw them. I could smell Brian's aftershave from the hallway, cheap and cloying, the same one he'd started wearing after that sales seminar he swore changed his life. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, but the footsteps stopped right beside my bed. Mom, he said, like nothing had happened. When I opened my eyes, he was smiling, like this was some casual Sunday visit. He held a sad little grocery store bouquet in one hand, wrapped in cellophane and already browning at the edges. Brought you flowers, he said, setting them down near my feet. Thought you could use some cheer. Trina trailed in behind him, all tight lips and cool efficiency, a tablet clutched under one arm. She didn't look at me right away. I pushed myself up on the pillow, breath catching at the pull in my abdomen. You got my message. Brian glanced at his phone. Yeah. Thought it was a bit dramatic, to be honest. I stared at him. You're in recovery, he added quickly. This place isn't perfect, but it's temporary, just until you're stable. I kept my voice level. I never agreed to this. Trina finally looked at me, her tone clipped. We couldn't risk another $9,000 for a room upgrade, Linda. The insurance already flagged the first claim. It wasn't an upgrade, I said. It was part of my care plan, the one I signed off on, with my doctor, with you. Brian exhaled through his nose, trying to stay patient. Right. But that was before the surgical complications, before you were under sedation for 48 hours. Things changed. I felt my heart start to race, but I kept going. Then you should have waited. You should have called Nina. He shook his head. We're not going to keep playing referee between you two. You gave us permission to handle things if it got bad. I didn't give you power of attorney. There was a beat of silence. Then Brian looked at Trina. Trina looked at me. I am now, he said. The words didn't land all at once. It took a second, like hearing a car alarm outside and not realizing it's yours. No, I said slowly. No, you're not. He pulled something from the inner pocket of his jacket, a folded envelope, already creased from being handled too much. You were unresponsive, Mom. The hospital needed a signature for discharge, and they needed a legal contact. You'd name me as your emergency proxy. That's not POA. We had to step in, Trina cut in, finally stepping closer. Her voice was sharper now. You were out. We didn't have time to call lawyers. They let Brian sign the temporary paperwork, and we made the decision for your safety. I stared at both of them, the back of my throat tightening until it felt like I couldn't swallow. You forged my rights. It's legal, Brian said. Temporary guardianship, until you're cleared by the staff psych and primary. Then everything reverts. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the stupid flowers off the blanket and throw them across the room. Instead, I said, "Why her?" "Who?" Brian blinked. "Gloria. Why did you put me in a room with a woman who's been left to rot by her family?" Trina flinched just a little. "We didn't assign the room," she said. "We signed off on the transfer to the facility. They place patients based on availability. You didn't check?" My voice rose, breaking at the edges. "You didn't walk through first? You just handed me off like a piece of furniture?" Brian's face flushed. "That's not fair." "You don't get to talk about fairness." He opened his mouth to argue, but Trina was already tapping the tablet. "You're upset. We understand. But you're still healing, Linda, emotionally and physically. The staff here are qualified. You're safe. Let's not create unnecessary drama." I stared at her, at both of them. "I want to see the papers," I said. Brian hesitated. "What?" "The ones you signed. The POA, the discharge, the facility transfer. I want to see every signature. Every timestamp. I don't have them on me. Then bring them tomorrow." A long pause. Trina's jaw tightened. Brian glanced down at the floor. I looked at the bouquet, dying petals, mold on the leaves. The whole thing smelled like vinegar now. "I want Nina here when you do," I said. Brian scratched his temple, suddenly uneasy. "She's already on her way," I added. That got their attention. "You didn't tell her everything, did you?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Neither of them spoke. I heard her before I saw her, heels on linoleum, fast and deliberate. Not the hesitant shuffle of nurses or the slow trudge of visitors. This was Nina. Nina, my daughter who never did anything halfway. When she stepped into the room, she looked like a woman walking into a courtroom, not a hospital. Navy blazer, dark jeans, hair pulled back with purpose. A manila folder in her left hand, her right clutching a cold coffee she hadn't touched. "Mom." Her voice cracked slightly as she said it, but she didn't cry. She crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped her free arm around my shoulder, careful not to touch the IV line. "I knew you'd come," I whispered. She pulled back and glanced toward the curtain. "Is she awake?" "Not yet," I said. "Rough night." Nina held up the folder. "I brought the documents you signed last spring. Healthcare directive, power of attorney, emergency instructions, all notarized. You named me, not Brian." I could feel something loosen inside me. Just a notch. But I didn't let myself breathe yet. "Good," I said. "Let's go find someone who still has a spine." We requested to speak to the nurse manager. After a long wait, we were escorted down a narrow hallway lined with faded safety posters and one dead plant in a corner. The nurse manager was in her late 50s, with that taut, brittle smile I recognized instantly. Someone who'd spent her entire career apologizing without ever saying the word sorry. She greeted us in a small office that still smelled like microwaved soup. "I understand you have concerns about documentation," she said, folding her hands over her clipboard. Nina didn't sit. "We want to see the signed power of attorney, the one your staff relied on when my mother was transferred here." The nurse hesitated, then turned to her computer, clicked a few times, printed something, slid it across the desk without a word. I picked it up. It was my name, my birth date, my details. But the signature, it wasn't mine. Not exactly. The shape was close but crooked, sloppy, off just enough that anyone who knew my handwriting would feel the wrongness immediately. "I didn't sign this," I said, voice low. The nurse manager tilted her head, clearly rehearsed. This is what we received from the hospital as part of the patient discharge and transfer file. It appears complete. Nina stepped in. Look at the date. I did. The air left my lungs. It was dated the morning of my surgery. Time stamped 4 hours into the operation. I'd been under anesthesia, unconscious, cut open. This is fraud, Nina said flatly. The nurse's smile thinned. We don't manage originating hospital documentation. You'll need to take that up with admissions or legal. We're taking it up with you, Nina said. You're the one administering the care plan based on a forged directive. We want a formal review. Today. That's above my level, the nurse said quietly, eyes flicking toward the door. I can submit the request, but those decisions go to the director. Then get the director, I said, or the administrator, or whoever signs the checks around here. The nurse stood. I'll escalate it and circle back after lunch. That's the best I can do right now. She left, closing the door behind her with just enough force to make her point. Nina turned to me. They buried you on purpose, Mom. I know, I said, and I let them. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, that I'd forgotten something, but they did this. You didn't forget. They counted on you being too groggy to fight. There was a beat of silence. I looked down at the forged page again, the ink slightly smudged in one corner. What do we do now? I asked. Nina's mouth pressed into a line. She tapped her finger twice on the edge of the manila folder, then met my eyes. We fight, she said. You bet your ass we do. The haze didn't come all at once. It crept in around the edges, soft at first, almost comforting, like I'd been wrapped in gauze. Warm, slow, a little distant. But it wasn't sleep. Not real sleep. Real sleep doesn't make you lose whole conversations. It doesn't make you forget whether you brushed your teeth or if anyone came in to check your dressing. It doesn't make your own voice feel foreign in your throat. I started noticing it the day after Nina brought the folder. Things were supposed to feel clearer. They didn't. I remembered a nurse handing me 2 small white pills in a paper cup that night. Something to help you rest, she said. Same as always. But when I woke up the next morning, the clock said 11:42 a.m., and my tray was gone. I had no memory of breakfast, or of the staff changing my bandage, even though it had clearly been touched. I asked Nina what time she'd arrived. Around 10, she said. You were out cold. Didn't hear a thing. I started keeping the pills in my cheek, holding them until she left the room, then tucking them under my tongue until I could spit them into a tissue and fold it into the plastic basin on my nightstand. 3 nights in a row. On the 4th night, I stayed completely awake. My brain felt clearer than it had since the surgery. Not perfect, my body still ached, my thoughts still came like slow waves, but I felt present. And that's when I started hearing things. At 3:15 a.m., 2 nurses passed by outside. They weren't whispering. Dumped in Ghost Wing again, one of them said, laughing. Room 215's like a morgue. They should just unplug that side and call it done, the other muttered. Half those folks don't even have active policies anymore. Ghost Wing. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. The next morning, the hallway was buzzing. Not with activity, no, with paperwork. Whispered arguments, clipboard shuffling, low-level panic dressed up as routine. Then I heard the squeak of Gloria's bed wheels. I turned toward the curtain, just in time to see the bottom edge lift slightly. 2 orderlies wheeling her out. She looked small, folded into the sheets like laundry. Where is she going? I asked. One of the orderlies didn't even look up. Insurance ran out. Transfer facility. She has a daughter. She signed off yesterday. The door swung shut before I could say another word. I reached for my call button, but the light had stopped working again, so I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The floor felt too far away. My balance tilted before I was even fully upright. My hands grasped for the armrest, then the railing. Missed both. I hit the ground harder than I expected. Pain fired through my ribs. My head cracked against the tile. My vision swam. No one came. I waited. I counted. 1 minute. 5, 8. Still nothing. The hall was quiet. I tried calling out, but my voice barely echoed past the doorway. 45 minutes later, after dragging myself back toward the bed, sweat-soaked and shaking, a nurse finally wandered in, holding a clipboard and a styrofoam cup. "Oh," she said flatly, "you're on the floor." No panic. No urgency. She pressed the call button for backup and left me there. I heard her laugh with someone just outside the door. When they finally got me up, Brian was already in the room. He didn't ask what happened, didn't kneel beside me, didn't hold my hand. He just stood at the end of the bed, arms folded, watching them lift me back onto the mattress like I was something defective. "I think you should consider letting this run its course," he said once they left. His tone was calm, rehearsed. "What does that mean?" I asked. He sat down slowly. "This back and forth, the stress, the lawyers, it's not helping." "You're not well." "I'm better than I've felt in days," I snapped, "because I stopped taking the pills." Brian blinked. I waited for some flicker of concern. Instead, he just sighed. "You're starting to sound paranoid." I stared at him, and for the first time, I wondered, how long had he been planning this? The envelope came by mistake. A nurse handed it to me with my lunch tray, grilled cheese that looked like it had been pressed between 2 bricks, and muttered something about paperwork from finance. I stared at the return address, facility billing, my name printed neatly on the label. Inside, a stapled stack of charges, itemized in cold, perfect language, medical jargon and billing codes, but one line jumped out. Extended observation sedation, 4 nights, 2,312 EU hours. Sedation, not rest, not recovery, sedation, 4 nights, billed, as if I'd ordered it. I flipped through the rest. Charges for an upgraded monitoring device I'd never seen. A private consultation with a physician I'd never met. Medications I had refused. All billed under my account, under my name, under my patient ID. I didn't say anything to the nurse when she came back. Just nodded. Let her take the tray. Then I buzzed for Nina. She came down from the legal office she'd set up in the visitor lounge, still in the blazer, still focused, though the dark circles under her eyes had deepened. I handed her the papers. She read in silence, lips tightening with each page. "This is criminal," she said finally. "They've been drugging me for nights, Nina, calling it rest, and now they're billing me for it." She sat on the edge of the bed. "We're filing a complaint. Today, Medicare, State Board, Office of Elder Affairs, everyone." "I don't even remember signing a billing consent form," I said. "You didn't." She tapped one page with her finger. "Trina did." "Posing as you?" It took less than an hour for Nina to complete the formal Medicare complaint online. She took photos of the documents, attached scanned copies of the directive naming her as POA, and flagged 3 separate charges as fraudulent. We printed it all, and as she slid the final page into the folder, Trina walked in. No knock. Just walked straight into the room like she belonged there. "You're making this ugly, Linda." She said it quietly, but not softly. There was no concern in her voice, only restraint, controlled anger, the kind that bubbles just under the surface of people who like to think of themselves as composed. I looked up. What's ugly about wanting to live? Trina closed the door behind her. For the first time, she didn't have the tablet in her arms, just her hands, clenched together so tightly her knuckles had gone white. You've always had a flair for drama, she said, and now Nina's here with her crusade, turning this into something it's not. I didn't say anything, just watched her. Then she said it. We didn't expect you'd wake up lucid. It came out so naturally that it took her a second to realize what she'd said. She froze, just for a beat. Nina's head snapped toward her. Excuse me? Trina opened her mouth, closed it, looked to me. I could feel the floor shift. Not physically, something deeper. Like the foundation beneath everything I'd assumed was still holding up had quietly cracked months ago, maybe years. You were supposed to be asleep, Trina added, quieter now. Calm, cooperative, not like this. Not fighting, I said. My voice didn't shake. She didn't deny it. I'm still your mother-in-law, I said. Not a body to manage, not a problem to solve. Nina stepped forward. If you have anything else you'd like to confess before we go public, now's the time. Trina's face flickered, something between panic and pride. You have no idea what this will cost. Oh, I do, I said. It's right there on the bill. Dr. Sims showed up without warning. I was staring at the edge of my tray, lukewarm soup untouched, when he knocked once on the frame and walked in, clipboard in hand, no coat, just a gray sweater and deep lines around his eyes I didn't remember from before. Linda, he said gently, like he wasn't sure I'd remember him. I'm awake, I said, and lucid. He smiled, brief, sad. I know. That's why I came. I studied him. His face was familiar, grounding. He'd been my primary for over a decade. He'd sat with me through the arthritis, the early scans, the questions about the surgery. When I'd asked about Brookhaven, he'd nodded, said it was a good place, said I deserved care with dignity. I tried to follow up with you, he continued, glancing at the chart. Then I got a discharge summary I didn't sign, and a system note saying you'd been reassigned out of my care. My stomach turned. You're not my attending anymore? He shook his head. Not according to the facility's file. Your case was transferred to a contracted physician. Out of network. I flagged it. Got a call from administration asking me to stand down. Who did it? He flipped a page on his clipboard, then slid it to me. Under care authorization, it listed Brian Adler, limited POA, family-only access granted. Limited POA, I read aloud. What does that mean? It means he doesn't have full legal guardianship, but he was given enough authority to make short-term medical and logistical decisions. Nina stepped out of the corner of the room, where she'd been quiet until now. Can she revoke it? Dr. Sims turned to her. If she's mentally competent and lucid, yes, but she has to file it herself, before another facility physician signs off on a cognitive reassessment. That would complicate things. Complicate how? I asked. If they file a dementia flag, even provisionally, your ability to legally revoke anything could be suspended until reviewed. I closed my eyes. For a second, I just breathed. In, out, in. I'm still here, I said. I know, he replied. After he left, Nina was already texting. Lawyers, witnesses, notary contacts. She had a legal pad open on my tray, writing in short bursts. We need affidavits, she said. From your primary doctor, your physical therapist, the nurse from Brookhaven, anyone who interacted with you this year and can confirm you're coherent and competent. What happens if they try to block it? I asked. Then we go to court, she said. We make noise. That's what they're afraid of. Noise. But the hits didn't stop there. Later that afternoon, while Nina stepped out to print the revocation form, a nurse, one I hadn't seen before, rolled in a small cart with more documents. "Appraisal documents," she said vaguely, setting a manila envelope at the foot of my bed. "Family requested they be shared." I frowned. "Appraisal for what?" She was already turning to leave. "Your property, standard prep." I tore the envelope open. Inside, a full residential appraisal of my house. Square footage, market value, suggested listing price. My chest tightened. The date on the report was 2 weeks ago, before my surgery, before I was even transferred here. I picked up my phone and called Brian's number. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, everything okay? You had my house appraised." A pause. "I had to," he said. "We need to start thinking long term. You can't live alone anymore." "You decided that?" "You fell, Mom. You're on pain meds. You're in a facility." I stood up after being ignored for 45 minutes and collapsed in a room where no one answered a call button. "Exactly. Don't do that," I snapped. "Don't spin this like I'm a burden." "You need support," he said calmly. "And selling the house gives us the resources to make sure you're taken care of." "No, it gives you the resources." He didn't deny it. "I'm not dead yet," I said. Another long pause. That's not how this was supposed to go. Then he hung up. I stared at the receiver, then at the appraisal sheet in my lap, and I realized this had never been about care. It had always been about control. It started with a missing page. Nina had gone to request my official patient file, start to finish, from the facility's records office. They gave her a partial packet, thin and heavily redacted, with half the forms out of order and an obvious second folder behind the receptionist's elbow that they insisted wasn't relevant. Nina smiled, thanked them, and asked for a manager. By the time she came back to my room, she wasn't holding paper. She was holding a warhead. "They submitted you for long-term custodial care," she said, dropping the documents onto my lap like evidence. "Trina did. 2 days after your surgery." I blinked. My heart dropped into my stomach. "Custodial care?" "It's meant for patients who are medically stable but permanently dependent," Nina said. "Long-term, indefinite." I skimmed the page, my name at the top, next to a facility intake code I didn't recognize. It wasn't even the same form we'd signed at Brookhaven. This was internal to this place, this wing, and it wasn't blank. Under duration of stay, it read indefinite. Under family visitation requirements, it read not applicable. They'd checked the box. They'd checked the damn box that said I didn't need visitors. My hand trembled as I flipped to the next page. I recognized Trina's signature, slanted, sharp, written with the same cold efficiency she used for grocery lists and school permission slips. "She filed this without my consent," I whispered. "She filed this and never told me." Nina sat next to me, gently peeling the form from my fingers. "She filed it because she thought you wouldn't know, or wouldn't remember, or wouldn't be believed if you did." I covered my face with both hands, and for the first time since the surgery, I broke. Not a quiet cry, not the slow tear trail I'd managed the night Nina called. This time, it hit all at once, gut deep, wild. Grief and fury tangled together like vines choking out my lungs. "They wanted me sedated and out of the way," I sobbed. "Like some fragile little burden they could shelf and sell around." "They don't get to do this," Nina said softly. "They don't." I heard a knock at the door. Dr. Sims stepped in. "I heard from records," he said. "They flagged the discharge note and the long-term file as inconsistent. I asked to see both." I wiped my face with the corner of the sheet, still shaking. He set his clipboard on the tray. I can file a medical risk release. It's meant for situations where a patient is at psychological or emotional harm from remaining in a facility, even if they're physically stable. It'll trigger an emergency discharge, but it has to be processed fast. They'll try to stall. I looked at him. You believe me? I've always believed you, he said. Nina moved to the chair near the corner, already dialing her phone. I'll start the paperwork now. Mom, you're getting out. Sims gave a tight nod and left the room, closing the door behind him. The second he was gone, a facility administrator came in. She looked polished, hair tied tight, makeup too smooth, smile 2 clicks too professional. Ms. Adler, she said to me, I understand there's been some confusion around your care plan. Nina didn't look up from her phone. It's not confusion. It's misrepresentation, possibly fraud. The woman blinked. We'd appreciate if your daughter could wait outside while we review your discharge options. I smiled, cold. She's not leaving. I'm afraid policy. I'm afraid reality. My voice didn't shake. You have 30 minutes to prepare the release. I want my paperwork, my prescriptions, and a transport plan that doesn't involve the rear service elevator. The administrator stared at me, measuring, then turned to Nina. We'll need to confirm insurance codes before any release is approved. I already submitted the override, Nina said. You're working with someone who knows the system now. The woman didn't reply. She left. I looked at Nina. I thought they were just overbearing, I said. A little greedy, a little pushy. I didn't know they were this. They thought you were a transaction, she said, but you're still a person. She reached for the legal pad on my tray and wrote 2 words across the top in big block letters, discharge process. And under that, step 1, survive red tape. The key stuck in the lock like the house had been holding its breath. Nina gave it a wiggle, a small curse under her breath, and the door finally gave way with a reluctant creak. The air inside was stale. Dust hung in soft swirls where the light from the front window cut across the room. It smelled like stillness, and something older, like forgotten coffee and boxed-up life. My house. I stepped inside slowly, one crutch under my arm, Nina at my side. The floorboards were just as I remembered, uneven by the hall closet, soft near the vent by the kitchen, but everything felt slightly off, tilted. No music, no hum from the fridge, just cold. Nina moved quickly, flipping light switches, checking the thermostat. Heat's off, she muttered. No power. I'll call the utility company. I paid the bill before the surgery. Not according to them, she said. They said it was suspended at the request of a family representative. Guess who? I didn't answer. I lowered myself onto the couch and ran my fingers along the armrest. My old blanket was still there, neatly folded, untouched, like the house had been waiting. Welcome home, Mom, Nina said softly. I smiled, but it didn't reach all the way up. Later that afternoon, after she'd plugged in a space heater and made tea using a camping kettle, we started the paperwork. I've already filed the revocation, she explained, laying the forms out on the coffee table. But I want to back it up with a notarized statement and a physician's letter confirming mental competence. Sims said he'll write it. Will it be enough? It'll hold. We'll make it hold. She stayed late, sorting through the backlog of unopened mail and bills and flagged notices from the HOA. Someone had let the landscaping go. Someone had changed the cable account password. Someone had paused my prescription refill requests. That night, after she left, I sat by the front window with the lights off, just watching. That's when I saw it. A black sedan, parked across the street halfway down, tucked behind the maple tree that was supposed to have been trimmed last fall. No movement, no lights on inside, just parked. It stayed there for 2 hours. No one knocked, no one got out. But I knew. The next morning, my mail didn't arrive. Not even the usual junk flyers. By the 3rd day, the water ran brown out of the tap before it cleared. I found a voicemail on my landline, utilities saying my home status had been flagged as transitional. Not a homeowner, a facility dischargee. I spent that day with my notebook open beside me, documenting everything, the car, the utilities, the missed mail, every strange occurrence and every delay. Not just for myself anymore, but because I knew what it looked like when someone tried to rewrite a story out from under you. At 4:15 p.m., Dr. Sims arrived. No white coat, no clipboard, just him in a sweater and jeans, carrying a paper bag from the grocery store. "I brought soup," he said. "The good kind, not the powdered junk." I smiled and let him in. He looked around the room, at the dust still lingering in the corners, at the heater humming near my feet, at the pad of notes on the table, pages already half filled. "You look better already," he said. "I'm still scared." He sat across from me. "You're allowed to be. You went through something most people only think happens in movies." "Or to other people," I said quietly. He nodded. "But here you are, still here. Still you." I folded my hands in my lap. "You believe I'm competent," I said. "I do." "Then write it. Officially." He reached into his coat and pulled out a signed letter, already stamped. "Already done," he said. "It'll hold in court." We sat in silence for a moment after that. It was the first time I'd felt close to safe in weeks. But as he stood to leave, he paused by the door. "You said the car out front hasn't moved?" "Not since yesterday." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Want me to call it in?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Let's see what they do when they know I'm not afraid of them anymore." I was halfway through reorganizing my kitchen drawers when Nina called out from the dining room. "Mom, you need to come see this." I wiped my hands on a dish towel and limped over. She had her laptop open, screen angled toward the light, a county records portal pulled up. The title bar read, "Property Transfer Index." My address was at the top. "So?" I asked, already bracing. She turned the screen to face me. It was the deed. Or a deed. Filed 3 weeks ago. Signed, notarized, and uploaded, listing Brian Adler as joint owner by familial transfer. The file name read, "Quitclaim Deed Adler, Marion.pdf." "Brian filed this?" I said, my voice catching. "He did," Nina said. "It's notarized with your name, except you didn't sign it." My legs went numb. I lowered myself into the chair. "That's my house," I said. "Still is. But now it looks like you gifted half of it to him while under care. The way the document is written, it looks voluntary." I just stared at the screen. My name, looped in a signature that looked enough like mine to pass casual inspection. But I knew better now. They'd been mimicking me since the day they decided I was easier to manage than consult. "I want it reversed," I said. Nina was already nodding. "I've got a property lawyer on standby. This isn't just manipulation anymore. This is fraud." "What do we have to do?" "File for legal restoration of sole ownership, emergency injunction. Will allege fraudulent conveyance of property during medical incapacitation." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "I used to sign his school forms. Now he's signing me out of my own life." We submitted the forms that afternoon. The next morning, he came to the house. No knock this time. Just the sound of tires on gravel, then a slow walk up the porch steps. I saw his silhouette through the front window, still in his company fleece, holding nothing, wearing that same practiced look he used when he was caught lying as a teenager. I opened the door before he could knock. He looked tired. Not in the way I felt, drained and stitched back together, but in the way someone looks when the jig is up. "I saw the filing," he said. "I'm sure you did." "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "Then what was it supposed to be, Brian? Explain it to me." He shifted on his heels. "Temporary protection. You were vulnerable. I thought I was helping. By signing my name, by claiming my house." His jaw clenched. I didn't think you'd come home this fast. Or at all." There it was. The real sentence, hiding behind the one he said. I stepped out onto the porch, folding my arms. "You called it temporary," I said. "So was my trust." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it. The first flicker of doubt in his eyes. Not guilt. Just the slow recognition that whatever game he thought he was winning had flipped the board. "I was trying to do the right thing," he said, but it came out hollow. "No," I replied. "You were trying to do the easy thing, and you figured out a way to benefit from it." He swallowed. "Is there anything else?" I asked. He didn't answer. "Then leave." He opened his mouth, closed it, took a step backward down the porch stairs, and walked away without saying goodbye. I watched the car drive off, the same car that had been parked across the street for days. That wasn't a nurse's car. It was his. Inside, the paperwork was still drying on the table. My lawyer said we'd have a court date within 10 days. Nina had a folder labeled Adler v. Adler, which made me laugh once, then cry. I didn't trust silence anymore, but I was learning how to fill it with my own voice. The notebook was almost full. I sat at the kitchen table, morning light streaming across the scratched surface, and flipped back through the pages. Dates, names, room numbers, the nurses who ignored my vitals, the pills I never swallowed, the line item charges, the car, the deed, Brian, Trina, every crack in the system and every hand that widened it. Nina walked in and set down 2 mugs of coffee. "Black, no sugar," she said. "Just how you like it." "Apparently, I like a lot of things I never ordered," I said, tapping the stack of bills we were still sorting through. Nina smirked, then turned serious. "You know what you have now, right?" "A case," I offered. "A voice," she said. "That's rarer than a case." I ran my fingers across the cover of the notebook. Leather, soft with wear. I'd bought it for grocery lists. Now it read like a war journal. "I was just someone's mother," I said. "You still are," Nina said. "And you're also someone who survived something a lot of people don't. You have to tell your side before they rewrite it." I looked at her. "You think they will?" She didn't even blink. "They already tried." So I opened my laptop. The blinking cursor waited at the top of a blank document. Title, "The cheaper option, One Woman's Fight for Her Life." It took me 3 days to finish the first letter. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because once I started, I couldn't stop. I wrote everything, every manipulation, every silent hallway, every forged signature, every missed call, every time I was treated like a form instead of a person. I sent it to 3 places: the Office of the State Attorney General Medicare Fraud Investigations Unit and the Beacon, the local paper that still covered elder care issues when no one else would. I didn't expect much. That same night, Nina posted the first blog entry. She set it up for me, simple design, clean layout. We used my words, edited for clarity but not softness. No filter, no apology, just the story, exactly as it happened. We hit publish. At first it was quiet, then a comment, then another, and then they poured in, women, dozens of them. Some still in care, some recently discharged, some whose mothers had never come home. One wrote, "Same meds, same story, same silence. I thought it was just me." Another, "They told me I was confused. You reminded me I'm not." I read every single one. Some I had to close halfway through and come back to later. Some made me cry. Others made me furious all over again. But the one that stopped me cold came in around midnight, while I was refreshing the page with one hand and drinking cold tea with the other. It just said, "You saved me." That was it. No name, no follow-up. But I stared at it for a long time, because I remembered what it felt like to not be seen, to press a button and hear nothing, to wake up in a room you didn't choose and wonder if that meant you'd stopped mattering. That comment said I still mattered. I closed the laptop and looked around my kitchen. It still smelled like lemon cleaner and burnt toast. The fridge hummed. The tea kettle whistled from the stove. Normal things, but I wasn't the same. I didn't want to be. From the hallway, Nina's voice drifted back in. She was on the phone with our lawyer again, prepping for the next filing. "Adler v. Adler is being fast-tracked," she said. "She's ready." I was, and they weren't. The courier came at noon. No uniform, no clipboard, just a man in sunglasses who handed over an envelope and walked away. No return address. My name, printed neatly on the front. Nina opened it with a paring knife at the kitchen table. She slid out the papers, skimmed the top sheet, and didn't say anything for a long time. Then she looked up. "It's a settlement offer," she said. I didn't move. "It includes deed restoration, cancellation of your outstanding facility charges, and a one-time payment." "How much?" Nina hesitated. $125,000. I blinked. "And what do they want in return?" She held up the last page. "A non-disclosure agreement. You can't talk about any of it publicly. No interviews, no more blog posts, no testimony. Nothing." The number echoed in my head, cold and sharp. 125. The cost of my silence. I read the terms for myself, paragraph after paragraph of legal cushion. Their language was polished, no fault admitted, no wrongdoing claimed, just an amicable resolution. All I had to do was disappear. Nina watched my face. "It's your choice, Mom. I'll back you either way." I pushed the envelope away. "No." "Are you sure?" "They're not afraid of what I'll sue for," I said. "They're afraid of what I'll say." Nina didn't smile, but something in her shoulders softened. "Then we go forward." That night, we sent the full story, unedited, names included, to the Beacon. They'd asked before, and we'd held back. Not anymore. The headline ran the next morning, "The cheaper option, one woman's fight against a silent system." It was everywhere by noon. Local news picked it up first. Then a regional health advocate reshared it with the tag, "Not your burden." Within 48 hours, a state senator posted the article, citing elder fraud as a rising invisible crisis. The facility issued a statement, vague, defensive. By the third day, they were flagged for an inspection. By the end of the week, their administrator was gone. 2 nurses quietly resigned. A third was suspended pending review. My phone didn't stop buzzing. I received emails from people I'd never met. Caregivers, patients' daughters, neighbors, thanking me, telling me I wasn't alone, telling me they weren't either. One message stood out. No subject line, no name. Just, "You saved me." I stared at it for a long time. The court hearing for the deed came the next Monday. Nina drove. I wore clean jeans, a navy sweater, and the silver necklace Brian gave me when he was 12. It used to mean something. Now it just felt like weight. He sat in the back of the courtroom, no tie, looking smaller than I remembered. Trina wasn't with him. The judge didn't take long. The capacity ruling stood. My original deed was upheld. The quit claim was dismissed as improperly executed and lacking informed consent. Ownership restored. I didn't look at Brian on the way out. That afternoon, Nina poured 2 glasses of sparkling cider and slid one across the kitchen table. "To surviving," she said. I held the glass but didn't drink yet. "No," I said. "To not staying quiet." She smiled. "You didn't just survive, Mom. You beat them." I looked around the room. My room. The heater was running. The tea kettle was warming on the stove. The pile of notes from my notebook had been replaced by a laptop and a stack of thank you cards from strangers. My house, back under my name. My story, still mine to tell. That night, I sat down to write another post. Not out of anger, but clarity. I didn't call it Chapter 2. I gave it a new title. What Happens When They Can't Buy You. I hit publish, and I didn't look back. The email subject line read, "Feature Request, National Profile Opportunity." At first, I thought it was spam. Something about the wording felt too slick, too PR. But Nina checked the address. It was real. A staff writer from the Morning Register, a Sunday paper with circulation in the millions. She'd read the blog, the court filing, the inspection fallout. She said the piece wasn't just about me, it was about all of us. I made one condition. "If you do this," I wrote back, "you're going to talk about the women who didn't come home and the ones who still might, if someone finally pays attention." She agreed. The journalist came out 2 weeks later, mid-40s, direct, eyes that didn't flinch. She recorded everything. My voice, my house, the file boxes Nina had labeled with tabs like medical gaslighting and billing fraud, Exhibits AG. She asked good questions. The kind that don't just look for quotes, they look for truth. At the end, I handed her a folder I hadn't shown anyone else. Inside were emails and comments from other women who'd messaged me after the story broke. Names redacted, just raw stories. "They're not sound bites," I said. "They're survivors." She nodded, and I knew she'd get it right. That month, I spoke at my first senior center, then another, then a church rec hall. Nina drove me, always sitting in the back during the Q&A, sometimes wiping away tears, sometimes typing notes for the next legal submission. I started slow, nervous, shaking hands, eyes fixed on the floor. But the stories steadied me. Not mine, theirs. A woman in Arizona who'd had her checking account emptied while under anesthesia. A retired school teacher whose adult son refused to return her Medicare card after an ER visit. A widow whose name was removed from her own mortgage. These weren't flukes. They were patterns. And once I started speaking, it was like holding up a flashlight in a dark room. Faces leaned forward, pens started scribbling, heads began nodding. One day, after a talk in a community center in Ohio, I got a padded envelope in the mail. No return address. Just a stack of folded notes and a dozen hand-drawn cards, colored pencil, crayon, some traced in shaky ink. "Thank you for saying what I couldn't. My daughter made me feel like I was stupid. You made me feel sane. I forgot how to say no. Thank you for reminding me." I kept them all in a shoebox under the bed, not because I was hiding them, but because some things deserve to be held in private, like prayers. Then came Trina. I should have known she wouldn't disappear quietly. She posted a message on her public Facebook, thinly veiled, laced with spite. It's always the bitter ones who rewrite history when they feel ignored. Some people age with grace. Others go looking for enemies to make themselves relevant. It was vague, yes, but not subtle. Nina sent it to me before I even saw it. Do you want to respond? She asked. No, I said. Then changed my mind. I logged in, found the post, and typed back beneath it. Better bitter than silent. That was all. I didn't tag her, didn't name call, just gave her back the weight she'd tried to put on me, like handing back a coat I never agreed to wear. I logged out after that and made soup. Not from a can, real soup. Lentils and rosemary and bay leaf. I let the house fill with the smell while the heater clicked on and off in the corner, and I read 3 new emails from women who had just stumbled on the blog. One of them wrote, "I've been waiting for someone to say it out loud. You made it real." I thought about that phrase all night. You made it real. They'd tried to drug me quiet, paper over me, sign my name to things I'd never seen. They'd assumed I'd fade. But here I was. Here we were. By the time the article ran that Sunday, I was ready for it. It wasn't glossy. It wasn't dramatic. It was true. The final quote the journalist chose was one I'd forgotten I'd said. When someone tells you it's for your own good, ask for a copy of the paperwork. That Monday, 3 new speaking requests came in, and I said yes to all of them. The house was still. No voices, no TV, no radio, just the old floor vent ticking in rhythm with the cooling afternoon air. I stood by the window, hand wrapped around a mug that had gone cold an hour ago. Outside, a few brown leaves chased each other across the front walk, the wind gentle, unhurried. For once, I didn't feel like I was running behind anything. I didn't hear the mail carrier come up the walk, but I saw the red flag tilt down and the clink of the metal latch. I waited until she'd pulled away before I opened the door. There was only one envelope inside, white, thick, addressed by hand. The return address was the law office's, Nina's name neatly typed below it. I brought it in and sat at the table. No ceremony, no phone camera or music or wine, just me, the envelope, and the light that slanted across the kitchen tiles. I slid it open with a butter knife. Inside, a single check. The figure printed beneath the glassy ink didn't look real, not a fortune, but more than I'd expected. Enough to feel like the world had tilted slightly back into balance, enough to mean they had to say it. Yes, we did this. On paper. I turned the check over, clicked my pen, and signed it with hands that didn't shake. It was my name, but steadier. Afterwards, I stood and crossed to the living room where the box sat, same one I'd kept under the desk for months. Inside was a manila envelope, sealed, already stamped. Nina had insisted we print out the manuscript, not just email it. Old school impresses them, she said. It makes it harder to ignore. I didn't expect it to sell. That wasn't the point. I wanted it out there. I wanted it in someone's reading pile, on someone's desk, with a sticky note on the first page that said, "Read this. It matters." I slid it into my bag and headed out. The post office was 2 blocks away, a walk I used to dread. But today I took my time. The air was sharp and smelled faintly of distant wood smoke. I passed the bakery where Mrs. Klein always waved to me when she saw me through the window. She did it again today, holding up a sugar-dusted croissant like a prize ribbon. I smiled and kept walking. At the counter, I handed over the envelope. The clerk stamped it, tossed it in the bin behind her, and called for the next customer before I'd even stepped aside. That was fine. I didn't need fanfare. I needed motion. On the way back, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Florida area code. I almost let it go, but then I thought about the blog. How many women had reached out from cities I'd never set foot in. I swiped to open the message. Thank you. You gave me courage. Just that. No name. No backstory. But it landed like a stone in my chest. Warm. Heavy. Real. I stopped walking. Closed my eyes. Not because I was tired. Not because I hurt. For the first time in years, maybe, I didn't. Nothing in me flinched. My knees held. My shoulders didn't hunch. I could feel my breath go all the way down and come all the way back up, clean and full. I stood there in the middle of the sidewalk and I smiled. It wasn't performative, it wasn't brave, it was just mine. When I got home, I peeled off my coat, hung it on the back of the chair, and started a new folder on my laptop, a blank document, a new title, no deadline, no pressure. Just the freedom to say something else. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been. The silent one, the doped up one, the one who said I'm fine until the words tasted like metal. I didn't owe any of them an apology. They'd all gotten me here, and here was good. I walked into the bedroom and pulled the shoebox out from under the bed. I didn't open it, just held it in my hands for a while. I knew every note inside by heart now, every name that wasn't signed, every thank you that felt more like a confession. I set the box gently on the shelf, next to the book I'd always meant to finish, and the candle I only lit on quiet nights. And then, just as I reached to turn off the light, my phone pinged again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a picture. No text, no caption. Just a photo of a woman's wrist. Fresh band of hospital plastic, and a note tucked beneath it, scrawled in pen. They said I was confused. I'm not. I remember everything now. I sat down on the edge of the bed. This wasn't over. Not even close.